Welcome to an all-new episode of Charlie Cat Presents. I am your host, Dennis Morrison. In the near future, I hope to use a really new therapy to help with my spine, in particular the pain that I have for my spine. I have stenosis and a bulged disc and a herniated disc, and so they cause some problems for me. But it's quite innovative, and it uses human I have a tough time with this word. Amniotic fluid injections. Sorry about that. The fluid comes from donors who are going to have a cesarean birth, so that no babies are actually sacrificed in obtaining the fluids. And it's supposed to kickstart my own stem cells into healing or replacing soft tissue that has been damaged. But it won't do anything to the bones, but it will to the soft tissue. But anyways, this got me thinking about the history of medicine, and likely everybody here knows what is considered the oldest profession in the world. But in my way of thinking, that honor should actually go to the shamans, the healers, that evolved into the doctors that we have today. Most of you familiar with my channel know that I collect a wide variety of things. And I began looking to see what I could find of a medical nature in my collection, and was surprised at how many items there actually are there, including booklets and articles that I published long ago that I'd completely forgotten about. I was surprised to find several items which date back between 1500 and 3000 years. Now, these are artifacts that would have been used here in Michigan by the Native American people, but similar devices would have been used throughout the United States by the Native Americans. In just a moment, I'm going to show you a series of grinding devices that were used in the preparation of food commodities, but also for preparing herbs and other plants for the treatment of a wide variety of illnesses. Okay, here I have a variety of items dating back anywhere from 1500 to 3000 years ago. I've shown this one before. It would be stood up actually for use. It is a pink granite muller, and very heavy, and it would have been used for grinding food items or medicinal items. Here is a broken one that we see heavy use on this end, again as a grinder, more in the line of a pestle, that one. And then here is a small blackish green stone pestle. I have a wide variety of pestles that I found. And then a small pot to put the stuff in when it's ground up. And here I have some yarrow, and I'm not sure what these other ones are. They've been drying in my basement for a while, and so we're going to try to grind up a little bit of this so you can see how it would have been done. And then over here is a brick, a wedge brick actually. I pulled out of the Saginaw River. I don't find too many wedge bricks, but that's a wedge brick. So let's take just a small piece of the yarrow here, if I can get that to come off with one hand, and we'll just set that on there, and we'll use this one to grind it up, something in the manner in which they would have done. And you can see that it leaves behind like the hull and that, but there's a little pile of ground up material here. I'll put that over in this pot for a moment. Let's take a piece of this. Again, if I can get that off, the stalk is kind of tough. Come on there. Okay, well, we got that part of the round part. And we'll try it again. And as you can see, it's grinding that up quite nicely. Of course, back in ancient times, they would have been using a brick, but some other rough rock to grind it against. So we have I haven't ground it probably as fine as they would have, but then again, I haven't put as much effort into it as they would have. But that's, so these items are items known to be used for food, but also known to be used for the preparation of herbs and other plant materials for medicinal purposes. Right now, I have well over 100 chert flint knives in my collection. Some of them are very well defined, some of them not so much. But the variety is endless, actually, because many of the pieces are pieces of debitage or waste material from the production tools, and these small flakes would be sharpened on the side and used, and untold numbers of them found on occupation sites where tool production has taken place. And over the years, I have found ones whose exact purpose have been a bit of an enigma. However, looking at them in a possible medical context, their likely use comes into focus. See, chert flint is razor sharp and could easily be used for surgery. Many years ago, at my old Venetton Creek site that I used to work at up in Oscoda, I dug into an area that it had been a production site for stone tools, and my hands were quickly lacerated by the sharp edges. So they are very, very sharp. Now, the three pieces that I have here, this is a common style. It is a blade. It could have been attached to a handle, may not have been, and this side in particular has been sharpened. This one is unique because there are 6 distinct cutting areas on it, which I can see being used for different surgical techniques. There's a blade here, there's a notch here sharpened, there's this cutting edge here, there's another one here, and as you look at it, there are more and more cutting edges. That is a very unique piece, and I could almost see that being used in, if I pronounce this right, tree pinning, where the skull is opened up, and the Native Americans here in Michigan did do that. And then lastly, this is one of the flakes that I was telling you about. It is extremely sharp on the edge, and I don't know if this will work because it really takes 2 hands to do this, but I wanted to illustrate how easily this will cut into meat. And you can see I'm not putting hardly any pressure on it, and it's cutting into it. So if you really put pressure on it, you could easily cut into tissue to remove maybe an arrowhead that was stuck in there, or a small tumor or something. So I believe that any of these stone knives could have been used for medical purposes. This one, I believe, distinctly was used in medicine, in surgical purposes. Back in 1988 and 89, I wrote an article for the Herb Companion magazine titled Ancient Herbs Survive at Potshard Bog. It was about a small bog-like depression that was again at my old Venetton Creek site up in Oscoda, Michigan. An amazing little spot, to be sure, a sort of living artifact, or a compendium, if you will, of herbs used by the people who dwelt there during the middle and late woodland periods. In that small space, maybe 25 by 25 feet, there were hundreds of pottery shards all over the place, even in the waters. Walking near the bog in the summer and early fall, it was easy to find the tall stalks of the turtlehead plants. They are called Shilongiabra. The dried leaves were crushed and used as a tea having laxative properties. The plants' flowers were white or pinkish, and they were double-lipped, giving them the appearance of a turtle's head. Now, I got the feeling the little bog had changed not very much over the many centuries. Had it been disturbed, the salmon-colored pottery shards would no longer be there. They would have been carted off if there was development done. They would have been carted off if there was a collector that had gone there. I left most of them there. But at any rate, they were still in abundance the last time I was there. Other usable plants found right there were the lusciously sweet wild strawberries. Let me tell you something. If you've never eaten a wild strawberry, you've got to go out and find some. You know, the big genetically modified things that we get in the stores nowadays, they might seem delicious, but compared to those little tiny, way God made them, strawberries, they're nothing. Those wild strawberries are so sweet. The closest thing I can think of to eating sunshine on a summer day. They're just delicious. Anyways, there's also the rusty red fruit of the smooth sumac, as well as cranberry plants, the broad-leaved arrowhead plant. The various mint and wintergreen plants are all just a sampling of what what was growing there the last time I visited Potshard Bog. I counted over 20 medicinal plants growing there close together. Now let's move a little further ahead. Now let's move a little further ahead, many centuries to the colonial era of the mid-1700s. I have from a Dr. Jackson the handwritten instructions to care for a sick patient. And though undated, it is fairly easy to ascertain the document's age from the paper type, as well as the writing style and the type of ink. The ink was likely made with a black soot from the glass chimneys of their kerosene or oil lamps. And this would have been written with a quill pen, and you can see the document up here to my right. Transcribing the instructions is rather like transcribing or translating a foreign language. The style is just difficult to read. Here is the text as best as I can make it out, and I think there was only 2 words that I could not make out. But I quote, "Blister 4 inches under the collarbone. After the blisters are healed, you may put on a burgundy patch plaster to act as an artificial stimulant. Diet, light at present, such as bread, milk, rice. You may drink tea, but you had better avoid coffee at all costs. Keep the bowels open and in good order as you can. This is best done by diet. A sea voyage, when the weather becomes cold, is very much advised." So, in medical terms of the mid-1700s, what was meant by blistering? It was thought to be an effective tool to deal with conditions such as hysteria, gout, some simple types of inflammation, fevers, and in some cases, even insanity. But how was blistering done? It required applications of a fine powder made up of cantharides, which is a potent compound generally derived from the blister beetle. Sometimes other stimulants were added, such as pepper and mustard seeds. The fine powders were mixed with plasters or other compounds and spread on the surface of the skin. And this produced the blistering effect. If you'd like more details, check out the Jerry Walton website. It's Geri Walton website. Fascinating, with a lot of more details that I'm going to give you here on blistering. Okay, now these 5 bottles are the ones that I was telling you about. I believe these to be morphine bottles. You'll notice that the neck is broken on each one of these. I believe that was the closure method, that you had to break the neck off to open to get to the contents. One thing you can't see in these images is that 2 of the bottles have a clearly embossed, very stylized eagle with wings outstretched, etched into the bottle, and also the letters SGM. Now, these were found here in Saginaw, Michigan, not far from where I'm living, actually, and I believe that the SGM could stand for Saginaw, Michigan, but that's just speculation on my part, but it seems reasonable. Then here are 6 glass vials. Notice how, they're quite primitive. Notice how this one curves. Now, there's speculation on what these might have been used for. They might be next from the morphine bottle, so I'm kind of doubting that. And one of them, right here, has a small metal cap on it, and in the end of the cap is a hole. And it's possible that that particular piece could have been a hypodermic needle. But there are no measurement marks on it to show how much liquid is in it, so that you could see what the dose was that you were giving to a patient. Here's a very unique and very fragile little vial. Crude, it's very crude. See how on the lip here, how it angles down? Flaws like this were not uncommon during the period that this was made in, which I'm thinking was probably in the 1860s, 1870s, whereas the morphine bottles, I'm thinking more about the 1870s, 1880s. The vials, anybody's guess, but definitely in the Victorian era. So anyways, it's a very fragile piece. I was surprised that it withstood being dug out of the ground by a bulldozer that was full of rocks. And then this bottle is much later. This could be as late as the 1920s. It would have been a stopper top. There would have been a cork put in there. And I don't know if you can see it, but there are the markings on the side which show the amount of liquid, presumably, so you'd know how much to pour out for a dose. This is the kind of bottle that you would have typically gotten from a druggist or pharmacy. So a nice assemblage of early and interesting pieces. Now here's another small collection of bottles. Interesting, all interesting to me. This is a Bell Ann's bottle. It would have been small wafer type pills, probably white, sugar coated. The little reproduction stoneware crock, jug if you will, is very similar to the larger ones that mercury was shipped in. Mercury was at one time used a lot medically before we knew how dangerous it was to human beings. Back here we have a little Emerson Drug Company bromo-seltzer bottle. This one probably from the 1870s. A lot of people collect these because of the nice cobalt blue color. They come in many different sizes. Here we have a Vicks bottle. This is probably from the 1950s. How many of you remember having Vicks slathered on your chest by your mom when you came down with a cold? It's nice cobalt blue also, but you can't really see it too well in here. And then this is a Vicks, another Vicks product in this amber bottle, and it had a little glass dropper in it that you'd drop those into your nose. Then here's another nice Emerson bromo-seltzer bottle, and this probably is the earliest one. Looks pretty nice, don't it? Well, the bottom's missing, but even with the bottom being missing, it is a nice specimen to display. And the colors are really, the color is really nice in it. This bottle, though, I'm going to turn this around, is a favorite of mine. I found this on the Saginaw River here, and I used to live up in Oscoda. And this bottle is from C.V. Hicks Druggist, Osable, Oscoda, Michigan. The neck is completely gone. Although I'd have preferred it to be there, it is nonetheless a very nice specimen that reminds me of being back home up in Oscoda, where my old Lynetton Creek archaeological site is located. Now here's another nice selection of bottles, medicine bottles, that I want to look at just briefly with you. Condition varies quite a bit, as you can see. But let's first, this one, very nice bottle for syrup of hypophosphates. Then on this edge it has chemically pure, it says, and I thought I had the maker, and yeah, and Dr. MacArthur maker. Now this hypophosphates was used as for the stomach, and then next to that here is a fine bottle. I really love the closure on this bottle. Look at how that rim is on there. But also you can see it has embossing on it. It's hard to read on here, but it's citrate of magnesia, which was used for a a very powerful laxative. Back of the day, you can still buy that product though. Here is a medicine bottle, cork still on the top, exactly as it was dug. There's even some liquid in it, water, brownish color, probably from the medication that was in here. On the edge you can see the graduated size measurements. And it's really not that uncommon to find the bottles with the corks still in them. I found a lot of them that way. Here's one that's been nicely cleaned, and it has the cork in the top also. A friend of mine cleaned this up. Well, thought he was my friend anyways. And a paper label would have been applied. This bottle and the one I just showed you are the kinds that you'd have gotten from the actual pharmacy or druggist, and that have had a paper label with the instructions on it. This is another one of that same style. The difference here is that it does not have any of the measurement marks on it. Then this is another very common style of medicine bottle, probably patent medicine bottle. Again, I like the closure on this one. It's just a really neat looking bottle. In the inset here would be where the paper labeling would go on, and very nice little bottle. Now, if you remember me telling you a few moments ago that these early bottles had a lot of flaws and imperfections in them, I want you to check this out. You might think this is a crack in the glass here. It's actually an air bubble, and air bubbles are usually desirable to collectors. It just, adds to the rusticness of its age. Okay. This small one is probably a sample bottle. It doesn't say sample on it. Some of them do, but it's big enough to probably have been a sample bottle. And lastly, from the Upjohn Corporation, we have here, this one held 30 phenolax wafers, according to the embossing on it. I don't know if you can see that. But phenolax wafers really changed, Upjohn changed the pharmaceutical industry when they introduced these, because up to that point, pills were extremely hard to break. They were very tough, and it was hard for the stomach to break them down. With the release of these pills, which also came in a clear glass bottle, they were sugar coated, and it was a coating that made it, the person could crush it under their thumb, which made it much easier to take, much easier for the medication then to get into their system. So I hope you've enjoyed this look at some of the medical collectibles in my collection, and I will be back with you soon with another video of a historical nature. Thanks for being here. God bless each and every one of you, and I love you all.